This episode is sponsored by UPMC Altoona Elite Orthopedics. UPMC Altoona Elite Orthopedics and the UPMC Sports Medicine Concussion Program are proud to support youth sports across our region and proud to sponsor the high school football preview show on the Mirror TV YouTube channel. To learn more about their board-certified orthopedic surgeons, their specially trained concussion management experts, and the wide range of orthopedic conditions they treat, visit upmcaltoona.com/ortho. To schedule an appointment in one of their offices in Hollidaysburg, Ebensburg, or Bedford, call 814-889-3600. That's 814-889-3600. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to our special edition of our Mirror TV high school football preview show. I always have to look back to make sure this thing doesn't fall on us. We're at that point of the season now. It's Thanksgiving week. If you're still playing football Thanksgiving week, then things are going well for your program. Once again, I am joined by our high school beat writer, the much-traveled Mike Boydman of the Altoona Mirror. My name's Scott Franco. I'll be your host again. We got 5 games to talk about. At least three we're going to talk quite a lot about. Behind the camera, Dan Eisberg, our director, producer. And before we start, I want to say thank you. Juniata Valley sent us another hat. We already had one Juniata Valley hat, and actually I think Mike and I both tried because they're fitted hats, which means these things cost money, correct? You know more about hats than I do. Fitted hats cost money, I think. And I tried it on, I couldn't get it to fit, my head's too big.
And I think the flat brim is in. I'm not a flat brim.
Yeah, Mike and I are old school. We're old school. But yeah, thank you again to the Juniata Valley. I think we're at least going to have one team alive next week.
Yeah.
So but if we don't, we just want to thank everybody because the teams that gave us hats. Look at the teams that are still alive, Mike. BG, Northern Bedford, Central, Juniata Valley, still alive, gave us a hat. And we counted, we were doing it in our production. We didn't get hats from Central Cambria, Portage, Altoona.
Well, Shane McGregor says that the
it's in the mail.
In the mail.
It's in the mail. I guess it's that holiday season. We probably won't get it till January. But we're going to go with Shane's word on that. But anyways, thank you again to Juniata Valley people for dropping that off. And speaking of Juniata Valley, great segue. Friday night, District 6 Championship, 1A. I guess it's the state quarterfinals would be called.
Yeah, it's technically a state quarterfinal game.
Bishop Guilfoyle versus Juniata Valley. What are you expecting from that game?
Well, they've played now. This is kind of the rubber match because in 2018, Juniata Valley knocked them off in the semifinals.
Is that the game in Hollidaysburg?
Yeah,
like a Saturday afternoon game.
Yeah, and then 2019, it was they met in the district championship game the next year, and BG handled them pretty well in that one. Juniata Valley didn't make it past Homer Center last year, so this is the first time they've met up since that 2019 game. And Juniata Valley comes in as the top seed, but even Coach Musser said that BG is the standard in Class 1A. We'll get to that later with our stat of the week. But they're the team to beat. They're the team other teams in 1A measure themselves against. And Juniata Valley still is measuring themselves against them, even though they beat them in 2018. And they are coming in as the top seed. And those kids' goal at Juniata Valley is to win the district championship. But at BG, that's always the goal. And these are two teams that are coming to Mansion Park on Friday and expecting to win.
Do you think, are they both healthy from what you've heard or from what you talk?
Well, I mean, other than BG lost Hayden Garner at the beginning of the year, that's a huge loss for them. But as far as what they have coming into this game is pretty much what they've had. Carson Kesey-Wetter is playing his best football this season. Cooper Rother has been playing well. They've accounted for all 28 points for BG against Homer Center. And Lambert Palmer has really hit his stride for Juniata Valley.
Johnson could have a nice game on Friday night against Porter.
Yeah, as he's been scoring tons of points all year for them. So, it's really a toss-up game. I don't know who you were going with. I had to wrestle with this a while. I picked BG, but you could convince me that Juniata Valley is going to win just with a flip of the coin, really. That's kind of what it came down to.
And then the winner of the Bishop Guilfoyle Juniata Valley game is going to get...
Well, they'll play either District 4 champion Canton or District 2 champion Old Forge. And
Old Forge is the team they played before, right?
Well, we've heard about the Old Forge team around here at the Altoona Mirror a lot.
Okay.
One of our former and one of our current football writers, Todd Irwin, has some long experience with Old Forge and some bad memories.
Okay. And then, but speaking of almost bad memory, last week Central was behind in the fourth quarter, which they haven't been behind in the fourth quarter all year. But you know what they did? They came from behind and won. And I think, if anything, they got out of that game last week was a great lesson on that. They're going to now have to go to Slippery Rock University and play Grove City. What do you know about Grove City?
Well, Grove City is... it was kind of a toss-up whether they were going to win or Slippery Rock was going to win.
It was a close game, too, huh?
It was 28-20, and I talked to Bob Greenberg, who's a District 10 radio guy, at the Northern Bedford game last week, and I said, "Hey, who's going to win this game tomorrow?" And his partner disagreed with him, so it could have really went either way. I gotta say that Grove City is really happy to win that game. I looked at some of their stats. They've had a big turnaround under their coach. He had struggled his first few years there, and they've been really good over the past few years. I think actually your brother would remember something about Grove City.
Oh, the credit card game. The credit card game. Michael, you can tell that story as much as anybody.
Yeah, they for those that aren't aware, Tyrone had some bad luck with Grove City and measuring on a first down way before the Cowboys and Raiders did it in the NFL a few years ago.
That game was at State College High School, correct?
Yeah, they tried to put a card in between to see if it was a first down, and people are still talking about that.
It was a Western final because Grove went to the state championship. Tyrone had stopped them. They would have got the ball back. They're not saying Tyrone would have won, but they would have got the ball back and had a chance to win that game. And I always think of Grove City because Grove City College is up there, and they had a kid that played for the Steelers a little bit, a Division III school. But Central, I mean, they have a really nice chance to get to, I don't want to jinx or anything, but I mean, it's not like they're going against this team. Like last year at this level, that's when Bedford was playing that Central Valley.
Well, no, actually, that last year Bedford got to this point and they beat Hickory.
Okay.
So this is a game that Central, can win for sure. Bedford beat Hickory last year in this game, and then Bedford went on to play Central Valley, who is one of the teams that Central could play if they win this game. They're either going to play Central Valley or North Catholic.
They're playing Central Valley.
Central Valley won the state championship last year, and I will tell you what, though, I covered that game when they played Bedford out at Mansion Park.
That's right.
And Bedford was in that game. Mercury Swim had a long touchdown run called back, and that game was not like a horrible blowout. Central Valley is a really good team, but Central's a really good team, and so is Bedford. And winning that game last week, that could propel them. I think that they're going to win this week. We'll have to see what happens in that Central Valley game if that's who they play. I'm not writing off North Catholic.
I like Central too this week. It's going to look like a home game because Central. I was told last week Hollidaysburg was packed to the gills. Central filled out the Hollidaysburg side. Bedford filled out the visiting side. There was no room for anywhere else. If you wanted to take anything from the Cove last Friday night, that was your night to go from one. I stole that from the guy on the radio, actually. Another town last week that was probably empty was Loysburg and other places in northern Bedford. They're going to Clarion. They're playing Redbank Valley. And I want to brag that I was the only one that took Northern Bedford last week. But I was trying to catch up, so I tried to pick an upset. But good for Gary Black, good for Northern Bedford. What do you know about Redbank Valley?
I know. I thought Gary was going to throw a fist at me.
But he didn't he like almost just like playfully shake you or something?
No touching. This is 2021. He knows.
Gary could shake my shoulders. That's all right. I trust it.
But no, I felt great for Coach Black and Northern Bedford. A lot of real emotion about winning that game the other day. That was their first state playoff win since 1995. You could see how much it meant to him, how much it meant to those kids. Last year they had so many good skill players. Dalton Smith, Thad Leidy, Colton Ebersole, Caden Ebersole, excuse me. And they ran into Redbank Valley, the team they're playing this week, and it got off to a horrible start. It was 21-0, like right off the bat. They fumbled on their first possession. And I feel like this year they were more ready for the moment. They came out, they hung with Reynolds at the beginning, and then they just took over in the second half. And I'll tell you what, I covered Northern Bedford twice at the beginning of the season. I covered them against Cambria Heights and against Bellwood. This is a different team now. I mean, Ian
They
Snyder,
didn't look afraid, did they?
They didn't look afraid. And Ian Snyder, their quarterback, he looks like, he actually had a different number because he left his uniform. So he was wearing number 8 instead of number 14. And there were times where I was like, is this the same kid? Because he was throwing the ball right on the money. And their freshman wide receiver, Aaron Bowers, he was so impressive. I wrote that he made a Lynn Swan type catch like in the Super Bowl against the Rams.
You told me that on the phone last time.
And I don't say those things lightly. I'm not just throwing that stuff out there.
Hyperbole.
That was a heck of a catch. And Gary, when I talked to him on Sunday about this game, he went back and watched tape, and he thought all 4 of his catches in that game were just amazing. This is a really young team that is growing up, and I'm interested to see how they do against Redbank Valley. I actually picked Northern Bedford this week, and it's not just to make up for the fact that I didn't pick them last week. It's because I think they can win this week.
Now, how did they travel as far as fans? I mean, they did a good traveling?
Well, there was a good amount of people there, considering the fact that they were in for a 6-hour drive. Now, this one's a little shorter.
Round trip drive.
Round trip.
You scared me there. I went, wow, 6 hours.
I still got home at 3 a.m.
You did. And then you were up to get it. We're not supposed to. You was up to get it Penn State Rutgers the very next morning.
Yeah.
But then I'm just wondering how far away Redbank is. They're going to have.
It's not a long trip at all.
Reynolds had more fans, did you think, last week?
There was a good amount. I'd say it was probably pretty even.
Well, that's good. I think that matters to high school kids, to me.
Well, Reynolds only had to travel 3 minutes, so.
Gee, then that's even better for Northern Bedford that they got this win. Well, then our next game we talk about as far as traveling, Richland's playing Southern Columbia at Southern Columbia. I mean, how's that happen? I thought last year during COVID they had to have home games at certain places because you just couldn't get school districts to host. Holliesburg played Erie Cathedral Prep last year at Erie Cathedral Prep, but how did that happen?
That's one of the things I wanted to get into.
Oh, look at that. I didn't even know.
Because
like minds think
that's one of the reasons I put this game on there, because Richland had to go to Southern Columbia last year, too. Because this is the way the bracket is going. And yes, that changed with the COVID stuff, but nothing was really said about it this year. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, once a team goes into the state playoffs, their first game they play can be at home if they're on the top of the bracket, which is a tough pill to swallow for some of these teams because, so Grove City and Central. Grove City is about 15 minutes. That's about a 15-minute trip for them. And Central's going over 2 hours.
Yeah,
and
3, I bet, huh?
Farrell is playing at Karnes City in 2A. And these are teams that, if they were seeded, I would think that Farrell is definitely a favorite to beat Karnes City. But they have to go to Karnes City and play a true road game. And there's been a lot of controversy about this the past couple days. The PIAA has said that up until the semifinals that teams can host.
So next year at this exact same time, if this were flipped, would Richland then be at their turn? Could they host this game next year if it's Southern Columbia again and it's Richland again?
The way the PIAA works is when they do their brackets, the team on top in the bracket is considered the home team.
Okay.
And so the way the bracket is right now, Southern Columbia is on the top of the bracket, Richland's on the bottom. So that is why.
I didn't know if next year
It's,
they alternate
next year the brackets will be different because
So Central next year at this time of the year, maybe this game would be in a District 6 site, maybe?
Well, it's not necessarily going to be a flip flop because Central could be not even playing in 3A. Like there's so many changes that can happen, and it all depends on how many teams are in your district on where you are in the bracket. So they rework it every 2 years. But this is the end of this cycle. So next year the state bracket will look a little different. But I don't know whether they're going to be continuing to do this or not. Like technically, BG and Juniata Valley, they're at the very top of the bracket. So does that mean next week, if BG wins this game, they could be hosting a game at Mansion Park in the semifinals? I mean, they had to travel to Steelton High Spire at Steelton High Spire last year because that was the way the bracket worked out. I mean, it's the PIAA, I doubt, is going to do that in the semifinal round, but it was kind of a surprise to a lot of people this week whenever they saw some teams hosting in the quarterfinals. It's not a first round game, these are quarterfinal games now.
Well, then in our last game, the same thing, the same logic. State College is playing Harrisburg at Harrisburg High School. So it's the same. Didn't they play already? Harrisburg beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it was a close game.
Oh, okay. Well, then State College has a chance.
Yeah, State College certainly
But
has
again,
a chance.
the same thing with the brackets. The way these brackets, before these teams, we knew who they were going to be. The bracket was saying that this could be a home game for that team.
Yes, that's the way.
So if that was somebody else, like another school down there, maybe say Central Dauphin East. If Central Dauphin
well, the
East
other
takes
thing
that-
that takes a role in they want them to be playing on turf fields this time of year
Harrisburg has
because
turf now?
apparently they want to be playing on. That was what they put out. They put that they need to be on turf fields. I don't know what all the requirements are, but this is what they said last week. Last week they were like, well, we want to use all turf. This week they're saying, well, if a team's just won its district championship, its first game after districts can be in on its home field. So I just wanted to give a shout out real quick though to State College. I mean, I think there's times where during this year where both you and I thought Altoona would definitely beat them.
I thought
in the district
Olliesburg was going to beat them. I thought Olliesburg should have beat them.
They were not as good at the beginning of the year as they're playing now.
Right now.
And to get a win over Delaware Valley, which beat Altoona last week, that was a really nice win for them. And they certainly have a chance to win this game against Harrisburg. And if they would win that, they would either play Whitfield champion Mount Lebanon or McDowell, a team you're familiar with.
And this game, just real because we brushed over, State College plays Harrisburg Saturday at 1 o'clock. And that leads us to next, your stat of the week here.
Stat of the week,
Sound effect. Go ahead.
Stat of the week, which I alluded to earlier, is when Juniata Valley beat BG in 2018. That's the only time BG hasn't played for the championship. They've been in 8 of the last 9 District 6 1A championship games. So the only time they didn't make it was 2018 when Juniata Valley beat them in the semifinals.
And then who did Juniata Valley play that year?
They played United and knocked them off.
And
then United has really fallen off as far as that. They're actually, United is joining into a co-op with Blacklick Valley.
And they're going to be called, tell them the name of the high school.
United Valley.
United Valley, but we don't know their nickname. But I wonder what their colors will be, and I wonder if we could get a hat from, we can see which one. What's the other one? River Valley?
Yeah.
Is that the other one? You have a River Valley, United Valley. But that leads us to Mike's favorite segment. I can't wait to see what Mike brought this time.
I wanna know what's the name of the game.
2 schools, not even in our coverage area, but I just know about the names. One of our stringers, Matt Michaelone, sent me a name a couple weeks ago. York High School, which is a Whitfield school, has a kid named Diesel Ford. Dan will have that spelled correctly for you. Diesel Ford. It's not a nickname. His first name is Diesel. Diesel Ford. That's a cool name. And then Berlin Brothers Valley had a kid that was typing up All-Stars this week for the Westpac. I just love alliteration. Pace Prosser. Pace Prosser. He's an All-Star for Berlin Brothers Valley. But anyways, Diesel Ford, Berlin Brothers Valley, Pace Prosser. Anyways, at least we know next week we'll at least have 2 more names because we're guaranteed a winner from BG and Juniata Valley. But as Mike's getting ready to score here on his video game here, hopefully Dan's microphone's picking up that sound on there. But for Mike Boydum,
Wait, what?
for Mike Boydum, I actually had these games. My parents had to save up forever just to give my brother Tom and I a game like that. We had to share it. Mike probably has that to himself. For Mike Boydum, I'm Scott Franca. For Dan Eisberg, happy Thanksgiving this week, and we will talk to you next week.